another extra episode of Arinda Talks. For the next 2 weeks, I will make each week an extra episode with a recap of the first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Spoiler alert! If you don't want to know what is in the episode or about Strange New World, please listen to this episode after you have watched the episode. I will post this episode on Wednesday just before the next episode appears on the streaming services. This to avoid spoilers. The 9th episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds serves as a heart-pounding homage to the sci-fi horror classic Alien, while also handling the loss of a beloved crew member. Season 1, Episode 9, All Those Who Wanders, opens with the cheery graduation ceremony for Cadet Uhura, as well as a couple of very obvious red shirts. Despite their science and command uniforms, Uhura is currently still determined to leave Starfleet and continues exploring her own path, insisting that she's hating goodbyes. Though she seems set in her decision, Captain Pike and Helmsman Ortegas make it known that she always have a place on the Enterprise. Mid-celebration, the Enterprise gets called into a Priority 1 search and rescue mission for the crew that's gone missing on a dead zone planet. They are also on a to another Priority 1 mission, providing essential resources for a Federation planet. Pike sends Una and the rest of the Enterprise crew off and the initial mission while opting to take the kids in the station wagon as a landing party for their new mission. The domestically of these scenes in the captain's quarters serve as an effortless shorthand for Strange New Worlds to really nail down how much of a family this crew is, with Pike and Una playing mom and dad to their rowdy group cadets, lieutenants and commanders. Things like sharing meals and washing dishes together provide a certain level of intimacy on this starship that could many other Star Trek ensembles years to reach. When the landing party finds the crashed ship, they come upon a ghostly scene with blood smeared all over the walls and all functionality of the ship in dire strait. La'an and Mbenga find a significant portion of the crew dead, and at first they assume they fell prey to the planet's harsh elements, but pretty soon we come to recognize the brutal destruction of an enemy we've seen before. It's the Gorn. The episode cranks up to horror elements to 11 as Pike and the others find this final message from the crew of the fallen ship. The message details a brutal encounter with the Gorn, warning Starfleet not to have followed them there. Pretty early on, our landing party has split off into groups of 2 or 3, making them all a bit vulnerable to the threats they're certainly well aware of. Hammer has the nature accompanied by Uhura, having bonded together in the previous Gorn-themed episode as they worked side by side to save the ship. While it may not be immediately obvious upon reflection, it's pretty clear that Hammer is marked for that the moment to set foot on the planet. He's the only one that feels at ease in the cold environment, and he instantly begins doing out the most eloquent fatherly wisdom you have ever heard as he deep dives into the reasons that Uhura fears staying with Starfleet. Her fear is conditioned despite how easily it comes to her, stems from the loss of her parents. If she doesn't allow herself to get close to another new, and she can't feel the pain of losing them the way she did when she lost her family. Elsewhere, Mbenga is still feeling from the loss of his daughter. Though she did not die, he does not know when he will see her again. He projects those feelings onto the young refugees there found, snapping at La'an when she moved to interrogate the child. He immediately comes to the realization that he overreacted and then also shared some valuable advice with the security chief. Unlike the conversation between Hammer and Uhura, this does not set up Mbenga for that, but set up Laan to take up a new personal mission when they manage to rescue the girl. To ensure her the rest of her youth is brighter than the childhood Laan had. In the Med Bay, all alien refugees they found begins to appear very ill, sweating, veins bulging, breathing labored. It doesn't look good. If you didn't recognize the distinct alien vibes of this episode before this moment, you certainly will as soon as four gone hatchlings burst right through the chest cavity of this. While Alien screaming and violently killed Cadet Chia before skittering away into the depths of the ship. Over in the boy clubs consisted of Spock, Pike, Mbenga and Sam Kirk, they newly promoted Lieutenant Duke becomes their next target, as he attacked and ripped right out of Spock's hand. The gun matured at a friendly, rapid pace, sending each of the group or heroes has split into terror and fear, and they begin to realize that they up against. When Hammer and Uhura get the power back up and running, Pike calls for what's left of the team to regroup if they want to make it out they're alive. They come together and formulate an impressive plan to immolate the Gorn, but it comes with a great sacrifice. Though their plan works, they are doomed to lose Hammer, who hid the fact that he's been infected in order to ensure the rest of the team's survival. I really liked this episode, and although it was very hard to see and lose Hammer, I must say it was I don't want to say the first episode, but I think this is like the second or third episode that I really gonna start liking Hammer. And it's a pity that they write him off. I don't want to say write him off like this, but that they write him off. But there are conspiracies that they did that because they want to bring Scotty into the mix. And in one way that's gonna screw up canon, I guess, because Scotty just came on board when I believe Kirk was captain of the Enterprise. So I'm going to ask Track Cannon what he thinks about this. And we will see. We will see. We begin the episode with Uhura's log. And that was very nice to see too. Who she is involving this episode, because we all know she doesn't know her part. She did all the rotations on the ship because to find out where her place is, and she is really struggling with that. The bond she has with Hammer is very phenomenal, and I really, really love that bond. You could see that he was not only a mentor to her or just a senior officer that is willing to spread his knowledge about things, but I think she was more like a daughter to him, and he does that in a nice way, and it's almost in the way of like having a Vulcan mentor, but the Vulcan mentor has feelings. And it's like I said, still you could see her reaction when eventually Hammer leaves. And I think I never thought this would happen. But I have seen some like scenes behind the episode and a little interviews with Bruce, who played Hammer, and he was talking about that they were preparing him in a way too, that he was being killed or right off of the season. But he was asking of the writers, please let me have a cool exit. And I think this is a pretty good exit to go. The Enterprise has this priority mission to go to Deep Space Station K9 to deliver Phidium power cells, because they really need the help, and if they don't get it, they might die, because also the life environment system is on that. They just need to have it, because otherwise they won't survive. And so Uhura has rotated all in all the departments, and now there was a little big off send-off party for her and 2 others too, because their mission on the Enterprise has ended. And you could see it of the senior staff like Ortegas and Pike and Una and a lot of others. They say that they were hoping that Uhura would change her mind, because she had an impact on the Enterprise, and she was, well, although she was just an ensign, she was considered a great asset to the crew and the Enterprise. So when the party was going on, Captain Pike called Lieutenant of Atkinson Duke in front, and they notified him, well, you're not being an ensign anymore, you will be a lieutenant. So it was nice to see that how official, unofficial, they make somebody promote. And so when that happens, Ortega was talking to Uhura, and it was like, hey, loosen up. I'm your friend as well. Not only, I'm not here as your senior officer. And Uhura was really informal in the way of, well, sir, can I speak freely, etc. And Ortega's was, hey, you're among friends. Why don't you mingle? Why don't you make friends and just let yourself go? And it's a party for you. You rotated on every station on this ship. And well, Pike wandered off to her, and he also said, well, there will always be a place for Cadet Uhura on the Enterprise, and I really hate to see you go. And that was very touching, and I don't think that makes Uhura doubting herself, because in one way she doesn't know what her part is, and in the other hand, the Enterprise is more like her family. What she lost, of course, she lost her parents, but she still has her grandmother. And in the end of the episode, you see that she has made her decision. What is be a communicator of the Enterprise, what as we know her for. So when the party was going on, and once again this was like a captain's table, and I do like the fact that they do this kind of things, and I will come back to that in a minute when La'an and the rest of them got that briefing about a second purity mission. So when the party was going on, Mr. Spock notified Pike that there is another purity message from Starfleet. So now they got a double purity mission. And when everyone went away, only Spock, Laan, and Mbenga and Una were there for a briefing. And Laan was the last one who comes in. And Una tells her about the great stuff Pike had made, and he said something in the way of, hey, you have to eat, so don't be shy, eat it. And so Laan get waffles and a piece of pie, and as soon as she take a bite of the pie, she was very enthusiastic and said, well, this is delicious. And if you take a good look of Pike's face, it was like he was amused but also happy, because his smile said everything. And he was enjoying that Laan was enjoying his food. And I think this is one of the few times men has the same reaction what a woman always would have, because normally we still see women in the kitchen as the basic provider who cooks and take care. And I really do like it that Pike is so involved with cooking and taking care of his staff, but also like there is a time of working, and of course he will be the captain, but there is also a time of relaxing, and then he's more like maybe a space dad or a brother, or definitely a family member that is enjoying himself. So Pike is doing the dishes, and Spock sent off about the second purity mission they got, and that is taking a look and looking for the crew of the USS Peregrine. And the Peregrine has apparently stranded on this dead doomed planet called Vallejo Beta 5. And so Laan, Speron, and Pike was asking advice, and so Pike ordered to have a landing party. He would lead the landing party, and he would send Una and the rest of the Enterprise to Dia's K7 station to bring those other delivery to it. And it's very nice to see them enjoying food, because the way how I have been raised is the same. My mom is a very good cook. My mom is from Indonesia, and she taught me the same way of cooking, but she uses a lot of herbs, but also like when she makes dinner or make food, it's like a family bonding time. And luckily for my nieces, she carries that on to them. So every time my nieces are coming over for dinner or staying with them, it's always, I don't want to say story time at dinner, but it's more like they can talk about things, and it's like everyone is on one place and have each other's attention. And that's what I got the feeling with this crew, and how Pike is having those captain's table dinners and etc. So this is gonna be one of the hardest missions they ever had. I mean, the Enterprise is practically split in two. and they're going to have a communication dead zone on the planet. So it's not easy to get to communicate with them with the Enterprise itself, because the interference is too much. And so when they decided what to do, Pike gives La'an some more bacon, and she seems really enjoying it, and he is watching her eat, and it was like I don't want to say puppy love, but more like a fatherly amusement of, oh good, she is eating well. And Pike makes the face of, okay, load the kids up and let's go onto the space wagon and to have one more road trip together. What is really, I don't want to say weird, but he has those phrases, what I really like about him, and, it is who Pike is, and I think a lot of people who will join Starfleet, or people nowadays, would like to work under Pike, because he is in one way very relaxed, but also like he is the captain when it needs to. So they are on that zone planet now, and it is really gruesome, and they find blood, etc. And Hammer feels really home on the planet because it's as cold as Andorian, his own home planet. And this is very nice, and I don't know if the writers playing Star Trek Online, because there is a episode on Star Trek Online that has the same thing what happened here. So in the episode of Star Trek Online, Lorca and a few others have been crushed down on this snow planet, and there was one Andorian, and he makes the same remark as Hammer, like, oh, it is this cold is like Andoria, and it's like for me is it like Waikiki Beach, and that reminds me a lot of what happens in this episode. Of course, in the episode of Star Trek Online, they don't encounter the Gorn on that planet, but it's a still same, I don't want to say situation, but it is still the same thing, that Adorians really enjoy the cold, and what is really weird to us, but you also can see that it reminds you of that how Gorn are really reptiles and need the sun and the heat, and when the baby hatchlings hatch, that's why the little girl Oriana is going to the coldest place on the ship, so she will be safe, because the Gorn will never look for her like there. So they were walking to the USS Peregrine, and they were talking, and Spock makes a mistake to call Duke an ensign instead of a lieutenant, and Sam Kirk was telling, well, Spock, you owe Duke a drink. It's a Starfleet tradition. So Spock could make a remark of, yeah, it's a human tradition and this and that, and why the drink, and you won't do the etc, etc, etc. The cold-blooded Vulcan himself. But in this entire episode, we're going to see that Spock is using his anger, and that he let his anger through him to defend the crew more. And we see him totally going wild. And of course we know that it's logical for a Vulcan to depress those feelings. But because Spock is half human and half Vulcan, he needs to learn how to cope with it. What is not easy, and that's why I think Ian Peck is doing a great job playing Spock like that, because, and I have said it before, forget how Leonard Nimoy played it, because Leonard Nimoy is playing a totally different and older Spock than Ethan Peck. But okay, they were entering the Peregrine, and they found the weather outside was very rough. In the first shot in the Peregrine was of Pike, and my question is, how the hell can Pike's hair still be perfect? It is ridiculous. But hey, it's TV. So they're finding blood everywhere, and La'an and M'Benga are finding escape pods out of the ship, including the captain, and they all been murdered, ravaged by something. And they think it's the wildlife of the planet, but soon they will find out that it is not the wildlife but the Gorn. And something else. Part of the garment of the winter or cold expeditions, they have those ski masks. And I was thinking, really? Now with the ski masks? I think you are in the future. Can't you think of something like an electronic device or for your eyes that is more futuristic? They found the crew of the Peregrine ripped to pieces. Blood is everywhere. And Uhura and Hammer are working together to get the systems back online. And Uhura was could retrieve the captain's log, only audio. And I must say it was very disturbing, her last message and what happened to the crew. So the Pike asked her what she wanted to do, because she was his tactical officer, and La'an was immediately, we need to kill them, I want my revenge. So Uhura scanned for life signs, and she found two. One of human and one unknown. So she stayed with Hammer in engineering to getting the power online of the ship. And Pike, Uhura, La'an, and someone else were looking for those life signs, and they scoured the ship to find a little girl and an unknown alien. And I must say that alien looked something what you would say in Star Trek Prodigy of Lower Decks. It's not really an alien that we know, and that's also will set the tone for this episode. It's really alien based. But that is also, again, something what Starfleet would do is exploring. And Enterprise is still more a science and an exploring ship than a battleship. The alien is bringing that little girl to them, and she was very shocked. And if we are wandering around the Peregrine, we can see that the Peregrine is almost a copy of the Enterprise. And it's very nice to see that there is. I don't know if they use the same setup as the Enterprise and if this is just a replica of it, but I don't know. So the next scene is that Spock was talking to Nurse Chapel, and there's still that tension between them after last episode. And Spock asked her if she could take a look at Lieutenant Duke because he was injured in the Jeffrey tubes, etc. And he just needed to take care of. And they have a small conversation about human emotions, and Chapel tells him eventually, Spock, sometimes it's good if you let your anger come out and deal with it. And it's still, I don't want to say I'm still confused about their relationship, but it is still like, I hope there is still going to be more than that. And so it is really weird when we take a look to TOS that Spock is ending up with Uhura. And I really would have seen that Spock and Chapel would end up, because I already have seen this attraction between those two in TOS. So the next scene is that we're being back in engineering, and Hammer and Uhura work together to get the ship back online. And Uhura tells Hammer that she's going to miss him. And this was also the scene that you could see that Hammer and Uhura were more like teacher and student. But they have this fondness for each other like father and daughter. And when Hammer gave his last advice to Uhura before he went outside and killed himself, you could see how strong that bond is. And that moment made me emotional because I live in England and my parents live in the Netherlands, so and because of COVID I haven't seen them for 3 years, and I miss them dearly. Also, my father had a heart surgery last 2 weeks, and so in one way I'm very relieved that he survived it all. He is very validating as well as good. So I can understand how Uhura feels. And this was also the moment that now I started to like the character of Hammer. And I went that far that after I watched this episode, I created a new tune on Star Trek Online, and so the White Andorian, and I called him Chief Engineer Hammer, and his ship is called the USS Hammer Time. And I have never ever done that in a way I did for him now. Not even for Spock or for other characters. Never done that like this. And this episode gave me a lot of inspiration for writing another death scene or fanfiction about Hammer. And it is in the making, so you guys can read this when it's ready on my blog. I will put the link in the description. And I'm making at the moment a poem for Hammer, a fan poem. So that will be on there as well. But Hammer is becoming more and more loved by me. And this episode cranked me up because now you could see the real person and character what Hammer was. And well, so Mamenga and Chippo were talking to the child and alien, which we don't know what species it is. And Oriana was telling her name and how she called the alien, and Laan was interrogating the little girl, but it was very aggressive and very harassing how she did that. And I was really thinking, okay, you feel the pain what the girls face, because you was once that girl, and because of Una you got out of that situation. So it is very, and this was the first time that I actually gonna like Laan. Normally I always have the feeling of I don't like her, but after last episodes and this episode I really going to start Laan, and I don't know where she's coming from. And it's of course it's very logical that she is like that. So in one way I hope this episode will soften her a little bit up, because at the end we see her asking permission to have an leave of absence, and it's just to find Oriana's parents and family to give her a better youth than Laan had. And I also think this is a very beautiful scene. She was talking to Pike, and Pike was all in. He said, I will cover your ass for Starfleet, and I will give you the necessary help you need. But Laan, come back to the Enterprise and don't be with me, because you are family. You have a family. You're not alone. And this is also the first time she called Pike Chris. And she never would do that because she's too focused on her job. And that wasn't on Spock's and Mock, but there was another episode that they were having short leave, and they just found out that people had nicknames for her and Una, and that they were no fun. And in that episode, they created the Enterprise Bingo, and they did the Enterprise Bingo, and that was very funny to see. But you see also now that, as well as Una, but also as Laan, they are loosening up. They become not only of like senior officers, but they are loosening up because of Pike, because he's that relaxed sometimes. And it's just like she is more comfortable and reassuring herself, okay, I'm not alone. So Laan was harassing the little girl, and M'Benga comes between them and called her out and said, you need to stop, this is my daughter. And then he corrected himself, no, it's my patient. Later on, M'Benga tells Laan the story of his daughter and apologized. But also, he let Laan know she's not alone, and she could be an example now for the little girl, because the little girl has a similar experience with the Gorn as Laan did. So now we're walking somewhere on the ship, and Pike lets Spock jump up to... Spock was very, I don't want to say scared in this episode, but really alert, and there was really something wrong with him. And it looks like that his emotions were on the surface and was ready to come out, and it would make Spock crazy. And we see that Spock also has very difficult coping with his emotions, and he is confining Nurse Chapel with this. But she looks everything from a human's perspective, and he wants to control his feelings and emotions because he knows that it's gonna be wrong, and that if he doesn't let his emotion go. And in one way, I think that it's all to do with the last episode when they made out on the bridge, and he told T'Pring that it was nothing to him. I think there is still something there. And yeah, we have to wait to see what the writers are going to do with that. And you know my opinion about it. So then we see that the alien is infected, and Ariana knows what is becoming, because when she saw him sweating, the pulsar, etc., she knows something's gonna happen. So she crawled away to the coldest place on the ship and hides. Then the baby Gorn hatching from the alien's body. What I must say, they were very ugly. I always it always reminded me of that little alien, baby alien. But I also like that, I don't know if you guys have seen Dragon Ball, Spaceballs, the parody on Star Wars. At the very end scene, you see a alien coming out of this person, and he's going to tap dance and do a show number. And it looks like that. And I already have shared this on my social medias and said, well, Strange New World is gone ugly. So a lot of people had comments on that, and you know, this is the first time I really feeling the really intensity what Gorn are. And if you compare the Gorn in TOS and the Gorn in Strange New Worlds, those are two very different Gorns, and not only in appearance but also in being the Gorn. And although we laugh at the TOS Gorn, the Gorn from Strange New Worlds are very creepy. And Spock is on high alert. He knows something is wrong. And M'Benga is checking on Lieutenant Duke. And that is the moment that Lieutenant Duke is been attacked by a baby Gorn. So he's been killed in front of all of them. And so Pike tells the others that they need to be careful and they have to rendezvous in sickbay. What they do. And La'an is the first one who is in the sickbay. And she finds Nurse Chapel. There was a baby Gorn that wanted to attack her, but La'an was there to shoot on it, but it's escaped. And then they were fine to look Ariana. And they found her in the coolest place of the ship. And this was the first time we see La'an being nice to someone. And I was really thinking, okay, so you do have a heart. It is really nice to see how La'an is connected to this little girl. And in the end, she tells the little girl what she has been through. So they can relate to each other. Then we are back at the engineering, and Hammer and Aurora are powering up the systems. And Aurora called them Team Hamura. And what was really nice to see, and I think they would have, if they had more time, they would be a great team. I think they did. And, although Aurora is choosing at the end for communications, I do think she has a very good lead and passion also for engineering. So, we're at the decoders again, and Sam Kirk is mad, or in a way upset, that he saw a friend of him, Lieutenant Duke, died in front of his eyes. And he was mad at Spock that Spock wasn't showing emotions about that. Sam Kirk called him a cold-blooded Vulcan with no heart. And you could see those words did something to Spock. And like I said before, Spock wasn't himself in this episode. So to experience all those emotions and feelings, that is very new. And I do think, and we saw that also in the end with the funeral of Lieutenant Duke and Hammer, that Spock was angry. And he couldn't lose that feeling. Then we are going back to the engineering again. Uhura and Hammer encounter not a full-grown Gorn, but more like a half-grown Gorn. And so, like I already said, those are super ugly. And it's more like between a reptile like Godzilla or a crocodile and some kind of chameleon. And talking about a chameleon, Hammer finds out, and Mbenga and Chapel find out that if they spit that slimy stuff, it's a way that the DNA of the Gorn has mutated to a smarter and some kind of a chameleon DNA. So when the Gorn spit the slimy stuff through Uhura's way, Hammer pushed her away so he would get hit instead of Uhura. Later on, we also see and discover that this slimy stuff is also the way they reproduce. Person who get the slimy stuff of them, or when they hit it, they are like the incubator and host of those baby Gorns. And it's very intrigued because we as people are already have the knowledge and science that we can clone, and that it's just, this isn't far away. And like I said in the intro, it's very, very alien based, like the movie Alien. And in one way that was nice to see, but on the other hand, it was so much familiarity that you could say. And I think they made this totally up of the Gorn. I thought there would be something else with the Gorn, and like actually being pregnant or whatever else, that they lay some kind of eggs and leave, like a crocodile, leave it there and hope for the best. it's very intriguing how this whole episode is coming to evolve. And so Uhura brought Hammer to the sick bay so Mbenga can take a look at him. But because Hammer is blind and has this more sensitive abilities, Pike asked him if Hammer could sense them. And Hammer answered, no, I can't sense them, even with my abilities. But they are there. And later on, you see that Hammer is explaining how his body and sensitivity is working. So they were grouped in the sick bay and they were planning how to get rid of the Gorn. So Laan told them, well, we have to lure them out to the coldest places and kill them there because they don't like the cold. But what we also see is that Laan is very focused on to get her revenge, but also she knows that the Gorn are like packs. So there will be an alpha, there will be a beta, there will be and you see that in also with the hatchling, that one they have killed, one they have the two others were turned to each other. That would be the alpha and a lower ranking, and they will fight for being the alpha. And we see that Spock needs to tap into his anger, and that was very nice to see that he was tapping in the scene of how Lieutenant Duke was killed. And I mean that in a way because he needs to get that emotion from far and deep within him, because normally he will put it in a box and close it up and deal with it. And you won't see that. But now we see also that how emotions can make a Vulcan crazy and unstoppable and even dangerous. And Spock is telling Nurse Chapel later on, I can't hide it anymore. It has been out now and I can't control it. I'm lost. So they made some kind of a traps to lure the Alpha Gorn into engineering, and then they will freeze engineering up to kill that Gorn. So they ended up with that Alpha Gorn, and it was Laan who put on a fight with him and lure him into the engineering so he could be freezed. And they froze them Gorn, and she was hitting him with a pipe to really kill him. And when Hammer came out of his hiding place, you could see he was very ill. And that was the moment that he took his goodbyes. First to Spock, and at last from Uhura, of course. And he gave Uhura one more advice. And that was really a hard moment for me to see, because I really had hope that they could have more time, teacher and student, but also like father and daughter. And I think they really cared about each other. Hammer said his goodbyes and walked out of the ship into the gold. And he was smiling because at least he would die with the memory of Andorian in his head. The plant was very cold, like Andorian, and you could see that he was really happy with that. So he jumped more or less off the cliff, and that is his death. So then we have that scene with that the Enterprise is pulling the Peregrine behind them with the tractor beam. And we see the funeral of Duke Hammer and that other lady. And I know there are some rumors around social media that is they killed off Hammer because they want to bring Scotty in. And I don't know if that's gonna work because we know Scotty was on the Enterprise when Kirk was captain, James D. Kirk. And I believe also in the J.J. Abrams movies, we saw that Scotty has come on board the Enterprise only when Kirk was captain. So why would they change this now? And this will, I don't know, is this going to work as canon? I don't know. There's one thing what Uhura said on Hammer's funeral. And she told them, well, he helped me with my part. And Hammer was always the one that fixed things, what was broken. And while this funeral is going on, Spock became angry and angrier. And eventually he left the funeral. And Nurse Chapel saw that, so she came after him. And he told her that he couldn't control his anger anymore. And they hugged. And let me tell you guys, this was just not a hug between two friends. This is more. And I don't know what you guys think about it. So tell me about it in the YouTube channel and the Facebook group. Tell me what you think of this moment. And tell me what you think of whole the episode. They hugged. And there was that little lingering moment between them. And you could see Nurse Chapel wanted to kiss him, but he walked away. So I think we're going to see more of Spock and his emotions. So the last scene of this episode is that Uhura is coming on the bridge and she is looking at the communication console. And that is how we know she will stay and she will be kind of like the chief of communication. So after all, this episode I think is really good. It's really setting the pace and the path for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So the only thing I still have to do is rate this episode, and I will rate this as a 9. Yes, I'm very bummed that we lost Hammer, but it was really a good episode, also storyline wise, and also with the characters, etc. We have finally met the Gorn. It was Gorn ugly, and yeah, I think this is what we see, and I'm very curious to the ending of season 1, and I'm very looking forward to season 2. Dear listeners, thank you for listening, and join me next week for a new extra episode of Aranda Talks and the Star Trek series. You can listen and subscribe to Aranda Talks on the YouTube channel or join the Facebook group. If you'd like to comment or talk with me about this episode, you can reach out on the Facebook group or the YouTube channel. I also like to tell you about my other podcast called Girls Talking Trek. Together with my co-host Amanda, we recap every 2 weeks in a Star Trek episode, starting with Star Trek TNG. All the episodes will be recapped in chronically following. We will approach each episode with humor and a feminine look. Girls Talking Trek is to listen, follow and subscribe on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. See you next week.